So this is the second video for thermoregulation, and so the learning objectives that we're really going to focus on here are the top two, okay, to begin with, and be able to answer those, and then doing or thermoregulating in the heat and the cold, and also explaining why a swimmer would pretty much be covered with inside your notes. Those questions are there for you to complete, so these may not appear so much on the PowerPoint slide. So without any further ado, let's get going with this. Basically a background kind of question. I always call it a leading question. So this is something that we always want to be kind of aiming towards trying to evidence, and that is being able to discuss how exercise influences body temperature and how distribution can influence temperature in the body itself. So when we're talking about distribution, we're talking about things like blood flow distribution, maybe even location of your area of taking temperature will differ. So we're going to go through that. To help, normally if we was in class, we'd obviously go through a starter question, extension questions, so on and so forth, but we're going to just kind of skip ahead with those and get onto the other PowerPoint slides. Some really good info sheets and also an article here for you to have a little look at if you are struggling for from assistance to answer these questions. Again, Khan Academy, can't speak highly enough about Khan Academy in terms of its science clips. So important to seek different sources of information for you, and Khan Academy certainly is a reputable source for you to use. With this question in mind, basically, how does exercise influence body temperature? We need to understand general things about thermoregulation. Well, thermoregulation is pretty much maintaining your core temperature, no matter what you're doing. So when you go outside, you're obviously going to have a lot of external influences on your temperature. Living in Singapore, you can relate to that. It's very hot, it's very humid, sun shines quite often in the days, and so therefore those external factors make your body more, or make it difficult for your body to maintain a stated or natural core temperature. Okay, so thermoregulation is the safety mechanism that the body uses to maintain equilibrium, or a word that I would like you to use, which is homeostasis. Okay, so the homeostasis of temperature, pretty much thermoregulation. This is controlled by the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, you should know where that is located. Certainly higher level students of you, is found just around the diencephalon, okay, of the brain here. I'm going to just try and bring the picture up a little bit larger for you so you can see. Move it across, okay. You can see around this area, this is a lot of the control mechanism. So the hypothalamus is a gland as part of the endocrine system that controls your sweat glands. It controls, of course, whether your hairs stand up. It also controls things like shivering, okay, when you're too cold to try and generate heat. So everything is really coming from your hypothalamus and the control center within that. Of course, the hypothalamus will then react only in response to feedback loops. These feedback loops will be, of course, given by what we call thermal stress receptors. So a thermal stress receptor would be something like the skin. So the skin, if you walked into, I don't know, if you ever walked into FairPrice and you go into the cold area, okay, or the freezer area, you would naturally feel a little bit more of a colder environment, and so therefore that might actually have a response of, well, I'm going to start to put my hairs upright. Okay, by having your hair upright on your arms, that is going to trap particles, air particles, and so having a trapping of air particles actually provides a layer of insulation over the top. And when you research using your information pack, you'll notice that that is one form of the way in which we can gain or indeed dissipate or get rid of heat. So you can see the whole thermoregulation is really controlled by the hypothalamus and in response to these stress receptors. Okay. Please note that when we talk about temperature and thermoregulation, we generally tend to have two types of thermoregulation: core temperature, core body temperature, normally TC, and then TS, which is more shell temperature, like your skin. So we need to recognize that actually your core body temperature actually is completely different to that of the skin temperature. Now, when we're at school and people are actually gunning your forehead, technically that's not your temperature, that's just your shell temperature. So what we do know though is that your shell temperature is always somewhere between 1 to 6 degrees higher, okay, or sorry, I should say lower than your core temperature. So in other words, you're warmer, okay, inside your core. Now, naturally, that's because you've got lots of insulating areas, lots of organs, skin protecting the temperature inside. So if you are gunned at, say, 37.5 degrees Celsius, like the cutoff is to get into any restaurant during this period, and 37.5 degrees Celsius is considered to be having a bit of a high temperature, we know that, well, if your skin is 37.5 degrees Celsius, that means that, you know, your core temperature is anywhere between 38 and 0.5 and above, and so therefore maybe you're in a fever. So that's why they're doing it, if you've ever wondered why they're gunning your forehead and maybe not using another method. Other methods used during this to take core temperature is, of course, things like you can do rectal thermometer, which is actually the gold standard. If you really wanted to find out someone's proper core temperature, you'd have to do rectal thermometer. You can use the mouth thermometer, of course, but this is just, again, what the temperature is within inside your oral cavity. You can put a thermometer under the arm, okay, as well, but again, this is kind of very much a shell type temperature. And then, of course, then more fancy gizmos such as your electronic thermometer for your head. Okay, so these are the different methods are used, and it's okay for us to use whatever, but as long as we recognize that shell temperature is different to core body temperature. Then basically we need to recognize that no matter what temperature is, that different parts of our body, due to different blood flow or different activity, will of course change. So although you have a core temperature of 36.5 degrees, very standard, you know, if you've been working on your arms and doing an arm session, then there's no doubt that your shell temperature around your arm region is going to possibly be higher, because your muscles are working in that area, and we know that muscle contraction does cause heat, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. Okay, so at any one time, your body actually has a range of temperatures throughout whatever you're doing, and if you consult the information pack, that quite clearly demonstrates that and the differences between the two. Okay, so for the next video, we're going to go on to just a few of the other areas linked to, okay, core temperature, such as ATP resynthesis and then energy liberation leading towards heat production. So please click on the next video.